you remember last week, he wanted his sons to go to Egypt because he had heard that they were selling and they had grain. And of course, they needed food and for bread. And so he sent them down there. And so we pick up where the brothers have arrived, and now they will meet Joseph for the first time since they had left him in the pit and sold him. So beginning in verse 6, it says this. Now Joseph was the ruler over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And so we see here that this is beginning to remind you, even though if you've been reading, you know he's the ruler of the land, but now as he's about to see his brothers, it's a reminder of that God is fulfilling his prophecy that he gave in a dream to Joseph, that his brothers would come down and bow down to him. If you remember in the first dream in particular, that it was the sheaves of wheat, and it seems to be kind of corresponding to the situation. They needed wheat, they need grain. And so the first one is to show that they are coming to him, because if you remember that it did not include his father or mothers or anything like that in the first dream. It was only the brothers that bowed down to him. And so God is fulfilling it to the T, that the first time that he is seen as ruler in his family, it's only his brothers. And so we see here that he is ruling over the land, and no one's bought the grain unless he sold it to him. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. Literally. Exactly what the dream had said. This is the one that they had joked about and said, well, we'll see what happens to this dreamer now. You remember the last time they had seen him? They said, well, we'll see if his dream comes true. Well, it did. And it's exactly like he said, with their faces to the ground. And when Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them. But he disguised himself to them and spoke to them harshly. Of course, he would be in the Egyptian garb. He'd have a bald head with all the facial makeup and everything. And so they would not be able to recognize him. And so he...
Human nature just wants to say, you believe in that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But he didn't do that.
No.
He didn't do that.
No. But what we do begin to see is that they did not recognize him, and he realizes that, and he began to speak harshly to them. And so what we are about to see is now Joseph is about to test his brothers. Because it's like you said, Brad, like what would you think you'd do? You think if your brothers betrayed you, threw you in a pit, was going to kill you, but then sold you as a slave, that, this is the time I'm going to take revenge on them. But he didn't. But not only did he not take revenge upon them and take vengeance into his own hand, and he had the authority to do it, though. He had the power to do it. But he did not do that. He did not use his power to his advantage. But what he does do is use his power in order to see what had taken place in his brothers' lives over these past 22 years. Have they changed? Are they different people than they were whenever they sold them? What has happened back in the family? Because he doesn't know. So what would you do to test people to see if they're the same people that you were the last time you knew them? Well, we will begin to see that Joseph begins to do that. So he said to them, where have you come from? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. But Joseph had recognized his brothers, although they did not recognize him. So it's repeated for you to understand they had no idea who he was. Now, in verse 9, Joseph remembered the dreams which he had about them and said to them. So now he remembers his dream. And he knows that this is a fulfillment of what God had said. But now listen to what he says. You are spies. You have come to look at the undefended parts of our land. In other words, you've come here to take advantage of us. So what he is doing now is that he's now seeing what is the heart of his brothers. How are they going to react to this accusation of being spies in the land? Because remember, he remembers the last time he knew his brothers that they were deceitful and dishonest. Because remember, were they in the place they were supposed to be with their flocks? No, they were not there. So they're out there on their own, doing their own thing. And most likely they're living it up with the Canaanites. And that's why we will see that this is a separation that God is doing from the Canaanite people. And we also see here that not only did his brothers not recognize him, but now he sees in his dream that they're being accused of being spies. Now, what was the role that Reuben and Levi played in one of the towns where their daughter, where their sister had been abused? What did they do to those people?
Circumcised.
Well, they circumcised them, and then what?
And they killed.
They killed everybody. So they used a sign of the covenant of God in an unholy manner to accomplish their goals. They're selfish. And they wiped out people. And so, in so doing, he knows his brothers' hearts, that they're not, the last time he knew them, that they weren't where they're supposed to be. So they were selfish, and they would use anything to their advantage for themselves. Even to the point where they sold him for money so that they could get the money so that they could go do what they wanted to do. That's how selfish these brothers were, and they wanted to get rid of their favored son. And so he says, you're spies, and you have come to take advantage of us. And then in verse 10, their response. Then they said to him, no, my Lord, but your servants have come to buy food. Now, this is a little humiliating. Your servants. They actually said, we are your servants. But they're not his servants, right? But when you come to a foreign land, to the rulers of that land, you come and you say, I am your servant. Remember, this is typical of even what Jacob had done whenever he went to Laban. He said, your servant has come. So this is a sign of humility, that we are not here to do harm. We are here to be humble. And we just are here to seek food. So in verse 11, we see we are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Okay. You always think highly of yourself, right? I mean, they're not going to say, no, we're dishonest. We've sold our brother. We've killed people. We've killed a whole village. No, we're honest men. Your servants are not spies. Yet he, that is Joseph, said to them, no, but you have come to look at the undefended parts of our land. But they said, your servants are 12 brothers in all, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no longer alive. Huh, yeah.
And the King James said, and one is not.
Yeah. Huh.
And one is not.
So first they said we are all brothers. And now we see the explanation that there are 12 brothers, that we were actually 12. And that one is still alive with the younger that is back with the father. And we'll see later on that Joseph has been questioning them. Is why they're answering the way they are. But he has now found out that his younger brother is alive and safe. They haven't done anything with him. And he sees that all his brothers are alive, that the family is well. So in this questioning, he is beginning to learn about his family without them knowing that he's learning about the family. Because they don't know who he is. They don't know why he's asking these questions. We'll see later on, whenever they speak to their father, he says, well, he was asking all these questions. Well, yeah. But Joseph said to them in verse 14, it is as I said to you, you are spies. By this you will be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, or in other words, this shall be done, or Pharaoh himself is going to be killed. So in other words, it's swearing upon Pharaoh, his authority that's under Pharaoh himself. So by the life of Pharaoh, you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. So this is like an oath.
You know, Ben, I was reading yesterday some stuff about our American history and the importance of trial by jury and that kind of thing. And if you see right here, this is a complete verdict by the one in charge. In other words, we don't think about that here because we know if we are convicted or we're tried, we get to go before a jury of our peers. But when Joseph says, you are spies, there's no defense.
No.
There's no defense. He's the king of the land, basically. He's second command. But there's no, well, wait a minute. We got an attorney here to prove we're not spies.
Yeah, that's right.
No, you're a spy.
Yeah. You're at when you go to a foreign land in this time, you're at their disposal. They can do whatever they want to with you. So that's why what the brothers did earlier in killing that clan of the Canaanites was a bad thing, because if that got out that you have killed one of our clans, then the people around you could rise up and kill you. So you wanted to have peace among the people you lived around. But here we see that he is accusing them of spies, and that now he wants as proof that you're telling the truth, he wants the youngest brother to be brought to him. And in verse 16, he says, send one of you that he may get your brother while you remain confined, that your words may be tested, whether there is truth in you. But if not, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. So he put them all together in prison for 3 days. So now he's told them, you've got to bring your brother back. So they're going to have to pick one brother to go back and get the youngest and then bring him back while the other 9 remain in prison. Okay? Now, he's testing them here because he wants to see which one they're going to pick. What's their heart motive here? Because remember, the last time they got rid of the brother that was annoying them. So which brother are they going to pick? This is a test to see, are they going to get rid of somebody they don't like? Are they continuing that motive in the family? Or are they going to pick a leader to go down there and represent them? Had they changed? And he left them in there for 3 days, so they had time to think about this. But he changes it again. So let's take a look. In verse 18, so now Joseph said to them on the 3rd day, do this and live, for I fear God. Now he's not saying he's a follower of Yahweh in this statement, but he now letting them know that he knows their God. And so this should have had a little flag come up in their minds, like going, hold it here. What is this leader in Egypt doing fearing God? And so he says, I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined in your prison. But as for the rest of you, go carry the grain for the famine. Carry grain for the famine of your household. Yes, it's for the famine of your households. Carry grain for the famine of your households, and bring your youngest brother back to me, so your words may be verified, and you will not die. And they did so. So now he's changed it to say that, okay, only one's going to stay in prison. And the rest of you are going to get to go. So now he's flipping the role. He's waiting to see who they're going to send back. And now he's saying, boop, I'm flipping it. The one you chose to stay is now going to be in prison. And like you said, Brad, you can't say, well, that's not right. You said this.
I'll have to change my mind today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's you can't do that. You said. No, he can do whatever he wants to do. And in this test, now he has seen who they've picked, and now he's reversing it. Now that person has to stay in prison. Because think about it. For 3 days, they've decided, and that person thinks, man, I get to go back. And we have to stay in prison. So now these other ones, the other 9 brothers they get to go back, and one has to stay. But not only that, if one person went back with 1 bag of grain, how long is that going to last? Not going to last too long, is it? But if he sends 9 brothers back with grain, he's going to provide for the family. He's very wise. He's testing them while at the same time knowing that he's providing for his family. And so we see here that now he's going to send them back. And as he said, that you must bring back your brothers. So in other words, if you don't bring back your brother, don't come back, or you're dead. And if I don't kill you, then Pharaoh has a right to kill me. So by the life of Pharaoh, this thing will take place. So, and bring me your younger brother, so your words may be verified. And they did so. Now, here we go in verse 21. So what's been going on for 3 days in prison?
Who's gonna stay?
Well, yeah, but here's what they also have been talking about, and here's what I've said that they've remembered the event that took place. Then they said to one another, truly we are guilty concerning our brother, because we saw the distress of his soul when he pleaded with us. Yet we would not listen, therefore this distress has come upon us. And that's why I said earlier that in that time, they were listening to, while he was in the pit, him pleading for his life. And they totally ignored him, their own brother. That's how much they wanted to get rid of him. Now they're remembering it. They've had 3 days to think about it, and they're going, look, this has come upon us because of what we did to our brother. In other words, they're saying we deserve this. They actually admit we deserve this. I mean, because they could say, whew, all right, we're getting on out of here. But they're showing in their actions that God has been working in their lives over the last 22 years. And that, think about it, 22 years have passed, and that they, at this moment, remember what they did to their brothers. To their brother. The screaming, the pleading, the begging. And they say, this is why it has happened to us. That this is why because look, they're in the same position. They're leaving one brother behind while they get to go free. One brother was left in the pit and sold as a slave, while the other ones got to do what they wanted it to. And then they had some money in their pocket as well. Huh. So the same situation, but now they realize we're guilty. We're guilty. And I think Joseph sees this. And that's what he's wanting to see. Is this what has occurred? Do you feel bad for what you did to me? Is what he's thinking is in his head. And I think he sees that in his brothers. Because remember, they don't know that he knows what they're saying, because there's been a translator between them. And we'll see that later on here. But now get this. In verse 22, but Reuben answered them, saying, did I not tell you? So now Reuben is taking charge, because remember, he was the one that wanted them not to kill them in the pit, but to set them or to leave them, because he was going to secretly go back in the middle of the night and get them out and take them back. But he said, did I not tell you, do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen. Now comes the reckoning for his blood. But they did not know, however, that Joseph understood, for there was an interpreter between them. And he, that is Joseph, turned away from him and wept, because when he returned to them and spoke to them, he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. See, he knew what they were saying, and he knows, okay, they've had 22 years to think about it, and they're still thinking about it. And they know they're guilty and that they have sinned. But it's interesting that he didn't take Reuben, the firstborn. He took Simeon, the secondborn. Remember, who was the one that led the people to be circumcised and then killed the people? It was Simeon and Levi. Simeon was the one that had committed that act as well. And so now he picks Simeon, and they bound him and took him off to prison. And so what we see here is that now one was supposed to go free, because think about it. I mean, if you're first talking about, okay, who gets to go back? So for 3 days, like they discuss it and did this and that. And so obviously Simeon has convinced all his other brothers that, hey, it should be me that gets to go. I get to go back. And then the reverse is occurring. And now the one that they picked to go is now the one that gets to stay. It's a reversal. It's to see, okay, how is that one going to react now? Because he thinks he's free. He gets to go back. I mean, think about it. He could go back and tell Jacob, hey, this is a horrible place. We don't want to go back there. No, let's stay away. I mean, I know they've got our brothers. We can't go back and get them. Or in this situation now, you think you're about to go free, but now you're the one chosen to stay. I mean, you've got a whole new set of emotions. I mean, you've gone from being on a high to now, oh no, I'm the one that stayed. And you would think that he has, I mean, within man, we would have the idea that, hey, hold it, you said this and now you're doing this. Like, that's unfair. So all these emotions would be in these brothers. And Joseph is just like stirring them up to see what comes out. How are you going to react? Are you going to react selfishly and say, no, that's not fair? or you're just going to submit. Okay, you're servants, you're my servants, then you do what I tell you to do. It's all a mind game. And we see that Joseph is very wise in what he's doing. Because, I mean, I've heard it in the past from other people. It says that events don't cause you to do stuff. Events cause what's already inside of you to come out. In other words, hard times, it won't make you who you are. Hard times will only reveal what's already inside of you. And a lot of times your mask will come off. What you've been pretending, your true self will come out. And so that's what he's doing here. So in verse 25, though, it says, then Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, but here's the extra thing he did, and to restore every man's money in his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. And thus it was done for them. I'm sure that was kind of interesting. These Egyptians are like, oh, are you giving their money back too? But he does that. Now, once again, not telling his brothers what he's done and what occurs, this ain't going to look good. Okay? So in verse 26, the brothers, so they loaded their donkeys with their grain and departed from there. As one of them opened his sacks to give his donkey fodder for the lodging, at the lodging place, he saw his money, and behold, it was in the mouth of his sack. Then he said to his brothers, my money has been returned, and behold, it is even in my sack. And their hearts sank, and they turned trembling to one another, saying, what is this that God has done to us? I thought it was Joseph, right? No. They understand.
They know they're guilty.
Yeah, they know they're guilty, and they know that it's God at work. We see a consistent teaching and understanding in this family that it is God who is sovereignly at work in their lives. And so what we see here is that they are like, oh, no. Because they didn't put the money in the sack. So where did this money come from?
They think they were going to be accused of theft.
Oh, yeah. So what has God done to us? Joseph has once again put in another test. Will you leave your brother behind even though it looks like you're thieves? Will you forsake one brother so that you can have your life? Will they be too scared and go, whew, we got out of there? I hate to be Simeon, but we can't go back because they'll kill us. See, Joseph is very wise, and at the same time, he's giving them their money back. It's all a test. And Joseph is putting his brothers to the test after test after test. So, now they say, what has God done to us? So verse 29. So when they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, the man, the Lord of the land, spoke harshly with us and took us for spies of the country. But we said to him, we are honest men, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no longer alive, and the youngest is with our father today in the land of Canaan. The man, the Lord of the land, said to us, by this I will know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me and take grain for the famine of your households, and go. But bring your youngest brother to me, that I may know that you are not spies, but honest men. I will give your brother to you, and you will trade in the land. Now it came about as they were emptying their sacks, that behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw the bundles of money, they were dismayed. Their father Jacob said to them, "You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and you would take Benjamin? All these things are against me." Then Reuben spoke, which is the head of the family, as the brothers are, spoke to his father, saying, "You may put my two sons to death if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my care, and I will return to you." But Jacob said, "My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If harm should befall him on the journey you are taking, then you will bring my gray hair down to Sheol in sorrow." So we see here that they explain what had happened and the situation that they were in and the fear of going back down there. And yet at the same time, they understand if we go back down there without Benjamin, then we are to die. And so Jacob says, "No, you are not doing this. Benjamin is the last one, the last child of Rachel. And I'm not letting him go." And yet Reuben steps up and says, "You may put my two sons to death if I do not bring him back. So put him in my care." So as the leader of the family, he says, "Hey, you can kill my two sons if we don't bring your son back." Now, this is, on the surface, it looks pretty good, right? I mean, he's putting up his two sons for Jacob's son to say, "Hey, I will bring him back." But what he don't understand is that's not too wise. Because your two sons, if they die, you're cutting off your seed. Your tribe is gone. So you're putting up the threat of ending your tribe. So it looks like a good thing, but it's not. And someone else will step up and do something wiser. And we'll see that in this upcoming chapter. So what's going to happen? Well, let's begin chapter 43. So now the famine was severe in the land. So it came about when they had finished eating the grain which they had brought from Egypt, that their father said to them, "Go back, buy us a little food." Now someone else steps up. Judah spoke to him, however, saying, "The man solemnly warned us, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.'" He's going, "Look, we can't go back. We're dead. If we show up without our brother, we're dead. We're all dead." So in verse 4, he said, "If you send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you do not send him, we will not go down. For the man said to us, 'You will not see my face unless your brother is with you.'" So in verse 6, then Israel said, using the family, the national name of Jacob, why did you treat me so badly by telling the man whether you still had another brother?" And here's why. But they, the brothers, said to him, "The man questioned particularly about us and our relatives, saying, 'Is your father still alive? Have you another brother?' So we answered his questions. Could we possibly know that, like what he would say? Bring your brother down?" And so they said, "This man asked us these weird questions about our family, and so we just answered them. How are we to know that he wanted to have the brother to be taken back down?"
But he never did question about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, we don't have that in the conversation, but that's what would have taken place. So they're saying that this is what took place, is why we answered him.
So you don't think Judah's just saying, well, Daddy, he forced us to tell you about the kid and about because it never does say that back in chapter 42, when he is before Joseph, they said in verse 13 and 42, it says, in verse 12, it says, and he said unto them, nay, but to see the nakedness of the land you are come. And they said, thy servants, he volunteered the information. He said, and they said, thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. But it never says that Joseph questioned them about the father or the brother. But Judah is saying he did. And so I think Judah in front of his daddy is saying, hey man, this man was asking us a bunch of questions. We didn't have no choice.
Or it's most likely that this is what took place and why they answered the way they did. So we don't get the full conversation of how he spoke harshly to them. Remember, it's described twice that he spoke harshly to them.
So you're not thinking that it's another excuse that the brothers are coming up with? Well, the lion got our brother before. You know, or something killed Joseph. And so, Dad, that's what really happened to Joseph. You don't think Judah is coming up with another excuse again, saying, look, we didn't have no choice but to tell him.
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, because they're actually putting them, I mean, I'm saying that Judah is now putting himself, as we'll see, he has had a change of heart, and he's just saying that this man was asking us particular things. I mean, like, we didn't see the answer because in their statements, we didn't see him answer about the father being alive.
Okay.
He just said the brothers. But here he says, he asked if you're alive. Like, and so he's asking all these questions. And as I said, the brothers should have kind of, even though they said we don't understand why he was asking all these things, but they should have been going, what in the world's going on here? Like, why is he so interested in our family? But if you don't know what's going on, if you don't know that that's your brother standing there before you, these things wouldn't occur to you. And so what we see here, though, is that he's explaining to them, because think about it, like, Israel is now upset. Why did you do this? Why did you even mention them? Now we're in this situation. But Judah is fixing to show a change of heart.